Buddy, you're listening to the Sports Wars with your boys, the New Cross Brothers. I'm Tristan New Cross. Along my side, as always, is my partner in crime, the one and only
Sean New Cross. So, Tristan, the Sports Warriors, we bring you the latest news, the realest talk. So you got to make sure that you check us out every Wednesday. Right now, we got up. It's like, are we going to really party in the NYC in 2 weeks?
Right? In 2 weeks' time.
Well, I guess you could say 1 week time now.
Right, 1 week time, give or take.
Next week?
But for the first time, Bellator is heading to NYC and is going to be on pay-per-view. And in order for this to be successful, they had to do something a little bit different. They had to step outside the box. And we always keep saying that the mad scientist known as Scott Coker, once the bank and the wallet open up from Viacom,
You hear that right now in NYC? It's not a bingo hall.
nope.
But you hear the chants of what we've been saying, what our boy over at Fanboy Nation, Robert Samo's been saying, is BCW. BCW. You hear the rumblings around MMA. You hear the talking of what Scott Coker is doing for Bellator. It just becomes that eerie similarity of the changing of the guard is starting to materialize, and it's starting to change the culture in which you once knew as mixed martial arts. Everybody said it was going to be more entertainment value once the UFC was bought out. However, you look at what Scott Coker does. He's reaping the benefits of the free agents. He's also letting and staying back and waiting for his moment to strike. Remember when Eric Bischoff was in WCW? He waited for that right moment to get Hulk Hogan,
Not just
to get
that,
Scott Hall,
the
to
Outsiders.
get Kevin Nash, to create the Outsiders. That was one thing. That was one of the key moments in changing of the guard. You can look at Bellator and NYC, Bellator 180, whatever you want to call it, that at the end of the day, this was their crowning moment, their crowning achievement, because they went out and said, you know what? Sean Grande, you got your other future endeavors. We wish you all the best, but now is the time to change that guard. We're bringing in our Scott Hall. We're bringing in our Kevin Nash.
Yeah, they are.
We're bringing in Mike Goldberg and Ronaldo.
And don't forget the fighter and the kid in Brandon Shaw, bringing him over. They have a complete idea of what they and where they want to take Bellator now.
Well,
WCW in the day, Sean, did something unique to in itself was when they got word that they were going to create Monday Night Nitro. And they got wind that they were going to do it live.
That's how they were going to be.
Pre-taped WWF, now WWE. You get the exact same thing. You get Viacom, who's been in the wrestling business.
Been there, seen it all.
Been there, done it. And Viacom has all the money in the world. All the money in the world.
You're giving a guy with a creative vision in Scott Coker with no limitations. Not like Strikeforce where there was handcuffs and
because of Showtime.
You can't do this or you can't do that. The handcuffs on Scott Coker are completely off.
Sean.
The shackles are off, folks, and you're seeing. Again, I sound like a broken record. I was talking to one of my buddies at work the other day that I sound like a broken record. Every show that we do, every time we come on, I say, watch, this is going to happen. Nobody believes us. Watch, this is how it's going to play out. Nobody believes us.
I'm the one that told everybody about the Ronaldo and the Mike Goldberg. What happened to both of them join the cast?
I keep saying that Scott Coker's a mad scientist. Everybody's like, no. He's going out and digging up the old guys from the past.
But aren't you still watching?
Absolutely. That's what I was just going to say. When you've got guys that the younger generation hasn't been given the pleasure to see in their prime, they're going to want to see him still when they're past their prime just to say, you know what? I saw them fight.
Look, everybody's geared up to see the bad guy versus Wanderlei Silva. Everybody. Whether you guys admit it or not, you guys want to see Wanderlei Silva versus Chael Sonnen. Whether it's success or not, you guys want to see that. Randy Couture, a legend, right?
Yeah.
Has come out and said, hey, Bellator, if any of these main event guys fall through, tag me in. I want in on this. He wants to come out of retirement and fight for Bellator. Another guy,
Chuck Liddell,
has come out and said that he would love to fight for Bellator. And matter of fact, he called out Tito Ortiz. So if you're Scott Coker, and
I know
everybody would want to see that,
and you've got all these people lining up to wanting to compete for you. Now, I'm saying for you, not against you, but for you. It's one of those unique intertwining things here of former guys from the UFC. Like, dude, I could get a fat payday to be on a tentpole event in Bellator and make about $1 million. Why wouldn't they?
A guy named Nathan in the chat room says Bellator seems like it would be Vitor's Legends League. Vitor Belfort, I'm saying that's another guy.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. That we said that Vitor Belfort will end up in Bellator. He will. Without a shadow of a doubt, I can tell you from the interactions that I've had with people, everything is leading toward Vitor going to Bellator. And there's another guy that's still a free agent, and Mousasi, formerly of the UFC, free agent,
but formerly of Strikeforce.
He's being now linked that he's still disgruntled with the UFC, and he might just sign with Bellator. Again, you get your old guys, sure, but then you get the guys that y'all want to see still. They're going to go to Bellator. It's more exciting. It's more fan-friendly.
They're more revolutionizing the sport in how you look at MMA. Like, Bellator, their biggest thing back in the heyday was their tournaments.
Yep. They're going to bring a one-night tournament back.
And that was their thing. So you're seeing all this twisting and moving parts. But let's go back again to just talk about the Ronaldo and Goldberg. And, hey, Emmett, welcome back to the show. You look back this week and you look at everything that's playing out for this big event.
They want it to be the most exciting pay-per-view experience.
And that's where I was going, is when Scott Coker says he wants this to be a different experience. The first thing that went through my mind was, what does the UFC do that again, when you're looking again, comparisons, people. WWE versus WCW. You just said it. What did WCW do to beat WWE?
They went live.
So what does the UFC do right now?
They have their pre-show after their event.
So you're talking about that Ronaldo is going to be at a desk. He's going to be doing commentary in between the fights. Brandon Schaub, Chael Sonnen, Jen Brown, they're all going to be doing some type of commentary throughout the event live. They're going to be doing basically a pre-show
inside of a show.
Something that the UFC doesn't do. They're trying to bring that next element. And you're talking about, everybody's like, oh, Mike Goldberg. Are we going to hear virtually identical?
I'm waiting for Jimmy Smith to turn to Goldberg and say, what's virtually identical?
Because there's nothing virtually identical about anybody except for we're virtually identical. So you look at everything that's changing. One thing I said to you before we came on air was, so if Mike Goldberg was fed a script in the UFC of here's the lines you need to say, a la Vince McMahon would do to his commentaries,
by talking into their ear,
what is Mike Goldberg going to be like
when there's no script and the handcuffs are broken off?
And being on a script for 20 years.
How does his now interaction with Jimmy Smith actually goes toe-and-toe?
And Jimmy Smith is one of the best in the game in terms of being able to take people and make them seem better than what they are.
Right, rise up to what Jimmy Smith is.
And he did a great job with Sean Grande.
Absolutely.
He was fantastic. I was not a big fan of him, but he was tolerable. And that was because
He became tolerable.
And that was because of the ability that Jimmy Smith has as a leading man in his position. But you're bringing all these other guys, all these other moving parts into this, and Goldie and Jimmy Smith are going to be calling the action.
With Ronaldo being on desk duty with Jen Brown, Brandon Schaub, Chael Sutton. Who wouldn't want to listen to any of those people talk?
It's going to be an interesting adventure to see how all these pieces mesh together. But one good thing, though, that you can take back is that you're not going to have all of these people on the same event.
Right.
It'll be based on the fact of Brandon Schaub, Jen Brown, Chael Sutton's availability for certain shows.
Absolutely.
They may not be able to attend all, but they will be there for most. Here's an interesting tidbit. Mike Goldberg and Mauro Ranallo, in theory, have only been signed 2017, 2018.
Yes, they've been signed to it's weird. They said multi-fight contracts, but they ain't fighting.
But they will be at every Bellator event in 2017 and in 2018. So that's a lot of pub for those two, as well as the future. And bringing Ranallo in, met the guy, great guy. But it's an interesting thing is that when he went to SmackDown, I was like, you know what? That's interesting that he went to wrestling, because I always thought him as a guy that called Pride. I always thought that he was the guy that was
called
Strike Force. I liked him in Glory. The couple times he called Glory. He was an interesting guy when he was calling play-by-play. I was taken back about him calling wrestling, even though he's done New Japan.
And he's pretty good at it.
But what's left? You're wondering about, this is a good move on his part.
MMA Authority says all they need is Steven Quadros. Absolutely. Dude, if you could add Steven to the mix and get his expertise, him with the Muay Thai side, with kickboxing.
Yeah.
With Bellator kickboxing, put him on commentating with those guys?
Can you imagine?
Then you think now you're thinking outside the box. Now you're thinking about the longevity of the sport.
Then why not, if you're thinking about longevity of the sport? So you're not classifying, you're saying Bellator events. So why not do most of the time in play-by-play calling with Ranallo and Quadros?
Oh, yeah. I would do that for Bellator kickboxing.
Do that route. You use all the avenues. But again, this is the thing about Scott Coker bringing in people from Strikeforce era.
Absolutely.
The only guy we're missing is Frank Shamrock.
I'm sure Frank Shamrock is somewhere in the back lingering.
Like, where's Frank Shamrock in all this?
Because Frank Shamrock's still getting spit on by the UFC, so.
Yeah, because he should have been in the Hall of Fame.
Instead, you get Sakuraba.
I mean, I get why Sakuraba's in there.
Not in the UFC Hall of Fame.
I get why he's in there. Because it's the UFC Hall of Fame is not just the UFC Hall of Fame.
They don't call it a UFC Hall of Fame.
UFC Hall of Fame has the fact that they have different wings in it. So Sakuraba goes into one wing that showcases the legends of the sport.
Dude was like 1-1 in the UFC.
It doesn't matter. He's a legend in the sport. That's the point. We
need an MMA.
You have like 6 different wings in the UFC Hall of Fame now. So you have Pioneer Hall of Fame portion of the UFC Hall of Fame. Sakuraba fits in that. Whether it's the Pioneer, you can put Frank Shamrock in that. That's a different topic for a different day. If you really want to get nitty gritty about that one, people. So that's interesting about what's going on with Bellator and the continued evolution of the sport and where we're going. You guys got to stay tuned for the leap and bounds of what's coming down the pipe for Bellator. They're not done making moves yet.
No, they are not.
They are going to be making more. They're going to be pushing hard. You've got to stay up on Bellator. Don't sleep on them. This is the Sports Warriors for the latest news and real talk. Visit
www.ducrossbrothers.com. I'm Tristan Ducross. Along my side, as always, is my brother Sean Ducross. Coming up next, Party NYC. Does the bad guy take over Gotham? Stay tuned. Hear our take on the breakdown of the card. We'll be right back.
You are watching the Ducross Brothers, the Sports Warriors, right here on YouTube. You can catch us every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can check us out at our website, www.thehotspotshow.com. Or you can just follow us on Facebook at Ducross Brothers. You can find us also on Facebook at Sean and Tristan Ducross. So, stay up with us. Keep up. Real talk, real opinions, the only way combat sports should be done.
All right, everybody, we are back. We are the Sports Warriors, where we have real opinions, real talk on subjects of all combat sports. Make no mistake about it. Party at NYC has one thing going, and that is the fact that
they got a new villain?
Right. You got a new villain. The new villain should have been Wanderlei Silva.
And it is, because he avoided the press conference the first time around and has avoided any confrontation with Chael Sonnen. For a guy that speaks as much stuff as Wanderlei Silva does, why would he be avoiding everything from Chael Sonnen?
Real quick, in the chat room, Nathan says, is it true that Floyd signed the fight with Conor?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. That's coming up later. You won't want to miss that. But NYC, it's interesting because Chael Sonnen believes that he is honestly the bad guy. Because apparently he's stuck in pro wrestling mindset.
You got to be able to sell a fight.
But
he's got to be able to sell the NYC.
But okay, so he was off for a while when he took on Tito Ortiz, right? And did he perform at the level that we thought he would perform at? Did we think that he possibly just gave up in the fight? To each its own. The interesting fact is now that he goes in against Wanderlei Silva, who he wholeheartedly wants to just massacre inside the ring. But the issue that I have with this is what type of Chael Sonnen are we going to get? Because the type of Chael Sonnen that we thought we were going to get against Tito Ortiz, we didn't even see.
But there's a difference between that, Tristan. There really is a difference between the Chael Sonnen that we got against Tito Ortiz and the Chael Sonnen we're going to get against Wanderlei Silva. And I say the one we're going to get, okay? Because the one we saw against Tito Ortiz was a fraud. That one, I mean, that's probably a harsh word. My apologies. But let's be real. He gave that W to Tito Ortiz.
To say goodbye, send him off.
Humbling, mad respect if you in fact did that. Because that takes a lot of guts to do that.
Just like if you admit to taking steroids. I respect that.
But this is different. Chael Sonnen has been at it. He's been proven that now is the time for him to finally get his hands on Wanderlei Silva. Wanderlei Silva can't run, can't hide from him anymore. This has been the fight he's been wanting since the UFC Tough Enough in Brazil. See, this dates back. Their hatred is real. Their displeasure for each other is real. So you're going to get the bad guy.
So you're going to get 100% Chael Sonnen against this.
Oh, no doubt.
This is where I swing the other way. I don't think we get to see, honestly, Chael Sonnen versus Wanderlei Silva.
Why, you think Wanderlei Silva doesn't show up to weigh-ins?
Oh, yeah. Come game time, Wanderlei Silva ain't showing up, son.
Peace.
He ain't showing up. So if I'm Scott Coker, I'm on that phone. I'm punching in the dial Randy Couture's number. Randy Couture versus Chael Sonnen. Y'all will want to see that. Because I just see Tristan, that happening.
I would like to see that just because of the fact that when you look at who's on the card. See, I was debating if I wanted to talk about Phil Davis, Ryan Bader, or anybody else on that card because, well, you know who they are.
We know what Phil Davis is going to do. We know.
But when it was one of those things that came up and said, you know what? Ryan Couture, you're fighting on this card. I immediately thought that, you know what? What an epic moment would be for on an epic pay-per-view that you fight on the same card as your dad.
Right.
Or that your dad fights on the same card as your son.
Yeah, right. Because you can't make up those storylines. You can't.
That would be fun and interesting to see in itself. But Ryan Couture has been one of those guys that has been at the bottom of the food chain, the middle of the food chain.
Most of his career, would you say? He's
floated every which way. One minute he didn't want to do MMA and he wasn't going to be, he wasn't going to follow in his dad's footsteps. Right. Then after we talked to Randy a few times, you started to see and hear Ryan started to make moves into MMA, starting to train more aggressively with his dad. Then he started to kind of put it together a little bit in Strikeforce, kind of bottomed out a little bit, came into Bellator 2-0, faded a little bit.
Lost his last two fights
at lightweight, realizing he was cutting too much weight.
So then now he's going to attempt to move up to weight. And the only reason why he thought about moving up to the weight was because, again, he got a phone call from Scott Coker and said, hey, dude, I have one spot left on the NYC card. But the thing is, it would mean that you have to move up in weight.
Yeah.
And he, my friend, no hesitation.
No, because he only has to drop 7 pounds for this fight. He just walks around 7 pounds over the 170 welterweight limit.
But now my question to this is that I'm hearing...
All the welterweight guys, though, here's the issue that I have. All the welterweight guys in Bellator are extremely strong ground guys.
And also, they're a little bit more faster.
Yeah.
But so that comes to my point that I'm going to make right now, is that my fear with Ryan Couture is, from what I'm hearing from his camp in Las Vegas, is that he's getting beat up. He's getting bruised.
Because he wants to. He's here to prove a point.
Yeah, and his stamina isn't where it should be.
We'll see about that one, because the only thing I'm hearing
is... But if you're getting beat up in your camp over and over and over again by bigger guys...
That's the point.
Is that going to carry over to this fight? Is he going to get beat up so bad in this that this might be the line drawn in the sand that, hey, dude, Ryan, you might...
I think you're taking it completely the wrong way when they say that he's getting beat up in his training camp. By that means is that he's training with bigger guys to get used to the bigger guys and the bigger grapplers in the welterweight division, where he's not used to fighting the bigger guys. But when he's always been a lightweight guy, that's what he's in. So yes, him getting beat up is common sense.
But the way that I see it is that if you're getting beat up and you're sore and you're fatigued and you're tired all the time, that's an issue. You have to be able to come in and take the fight to even bigger guys as much as you can. As much as you can. At some point, you have to be able to put the work in and showcase that, hey, you're not getting beat up. You're not sore every day. You're not getting fatigued after every fight that you go into to spar or train. That can't just happen all the time. You have to be able to go and continue. And then you also got Heather Hardy, who I think is going to be Bellator's version of Holly Holm. She's from Brooklyn. Her home, she's going to be in her own backyard. So, 35 years old, 18-0. Are you kidding me? This is as real as it gets when you step in a Bellator ring. And she's now going from the prelims to the main card.
And that's the one thing that when you look at when you're fighting in New York and you got somebody from Brooklyn and you got somebody from that area, she's bringing people from Brooklyn. They're going to be rowdy and rambunctious when they get their hands into NYC. And you got to look at it too. She's making her MMA debut. And you talk about the comparisons to Holly Holm. The comparisons are very strong because of the fact that she only has 4 knockouts in boxing. So she's that point-style boxer.
Oh, absolutely.
But unfortunately, in women's boxing, isn't what it is. There's not a lot of women fighting out there. So when you get your fights, they're so far and few in between. So you look for that next avenue to go into. And this is one of them. When you can't get a fight you want, I'm out.
Go showcase your talent somewhere else.
So what's interesting is that she's a current WBC International Female Super Bantamweight Champion. Oh my God, that's a mouthful. But she's facing a competitor in this fight that leaves you scratching your head like...
Alice Younger. Like, okay, I get you want to give her a good fight, but against Alice Younger, nothing but mad respect about Alice Younger because she's been through the ringer. But, man, you just fed her.
But it's a good thing for Heather Hardy to come into this and see what's up and see what her future entails because Bellator needs more women fighters that people are going to be there to support.
They got to see something grow.
But it was one of those things that, man, everybody just kept dropping. I mean, for most part, the fight card is held, but you now had Carrie Ann Taylor-Melendez out in the flyweight.
And I can guarantee you so many people wanted to see that fight. So many people.
Yeah, because you're anticipating the arrival of Melendez and hoping that she continues to turn that page and put on great shows, great fights for the fight fans. And on one of the biggest fight cards, on one of the biggest stages, it just kind of fizzles a little bit.
So also on this card, we want to talk about, before we're heading out onto another break, is that Aaron Pico will be making his debut.
And see, that's another guy that you're not talking about. I remember when
we met Aaron Pico,
he looked like he was 12.
I remember.
And now you look at him and he's like, I'm so swole.
I remember sitting in the room at Bellator in San Diego, and I see all these fighters walking in, and they're coming over, we're talking, and all of a sudden there's this kid, smaller than my brother and I, and we're looking at him.
World-class wrestler,
and we're like, this is where they're getting ready to announce something big at the
I think he was
press
16
conference.
at that time.
Right. We look at each other, we're like, who is this kid? And we go up to him. I go, hi, my name is Tristan. Sean introduces himself. The little kid goes, my name is Aaron Pico. I was like, oh, nice to meet you, man. He was like, I just signed with Bellator. I said, well, congratulations, man. Bellator seems to be a good company, going in the right direction. Nothing but the best to you. And he said, well, I'm going to go train for the Olympics. And then I'll come back and I will fight for Bellator. I was like, okay, cool. Not a problem. Sit down. They introduce him. He comes off humble as a humbly kid that could be. Aaron Pico then looks across and says that he says to the world, I will become the next champion. Mad respect to the kid for saying that. Fast forward to this card, you get a guy named James Gallagher, who's been yapping to the world how great he is. Called out Aaron McKee's son, AJ McKee, calls him out. Calls out Aaron Pico. Pico then, like Sean said, now much bigger, much older, longer in the tooth. Ain't afraid now to talk and say exactly how he feels, Sean. Told James Gallagher, why don't you grow some balls and why don't you fight instead of talking? This kid, James Gallagher, as good as he may be, this guy seriously is going to get his teeth knocked down his throat at some point if he keeps talking. Because he's I don't know if it's in Ireland blood or something, but man,
you're talking
Conor
about
McGregor
James
and him just love talking,
You
stirring the pot.
You talk about James Gallagher and his willingness to talk the talk and fight the fight. Emmett in the chat room brought up an interesting point is that everybody in Ireland loves him some James. That gives me to a topic that I'm going to touch on later, that it must be an Ireland thing where you guys have all this swag. You guys got all this aggression. I mean, it must be one of those things that something needs to change. It's like as if you got the evolution of Conor McGregor and all that cockiness and all that, oh, I'm bigger than that, has now materialized in everybody from Ireland, right? It doesn't matter where you're from, but anybody in Ireland, anybody and everybody, dude, yeah, they're all yoked up. They're all wanting to bang. They all want to put on a show. And it's just like, okay. And James Gallagher is no different. He's been talking about wanting a title shot since he arrived in Bellator.
Without any fights, he wants a title shot. It's like, dude, earn your stripes, dude. Stop calling out people that probably will either powerbomb you right through the ring like AJ McKee would, or get into a street brawl with Pico. Come on.
Who wouldn't want to see an AJ McKee versus a James Gallagher? Who wouldn't?
Sean, that setup is along the lines of everybody wanting and pleading to the masses that how bad they want, and they have like saliva and salivating at the mouth, is that they want MVP. Everybody wants him. Now James Gallagher needs to just stop. And then what's interesting, we're going to take a break here, but I want to say is that Scott Coker says the only way this pay-per-view becomes a success is if they get over 200,000 buys. If they go 300,000 buys, they could call it a complete success. So that's the numbers that we're looking on heading into this pay-per-view. On our way out, going into our break, I want to give a shout-out to Boxing Liniment, Thai Oil, and Eat, Sleep, Breathe MMA, Muay Thai Authority, for all sharing our video today. Much respect to you guys for showing your support for the Sports Warriors. We are the one-stop shop for all your combat sports needs, from Muay Thai, boxing, MMA, you name it. We will cover it right here. No fluff, real opinions. I'm Tristan Ducross. This is my brother. As you can see, we are virtually identical. And we will be right back to bring you the fallout of the UFC Fight Night, Bamma 30, and the first ever PFL, Pro Fighter Leagues 1. We'll be right back.
You are watching the Ducross Brothers, the Sports Warriors, right here on YouTube. You can catch us every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can check us out at our website, www.thehotspotshow.com, or you can just follow us on Facebook at Ducross Brothers. You can find us also on Facebook at Sean and Tristan Ducross. So, stay up with us. Keep up. Real talk, real opinions, the only way combat sports should be done.
What's up, everybody? I'm Tristan Ducross. Along my side, as always, is my brother, Sean Ducross. We are the Sports Warriors. You can follow us on Facebook, Sean and Tristan Ducross. Hit up on our like page, Ducross Brothers, which is, if you're watching us, we're right here on Facebook Live. So thank you for all the viewers and everybody tuning into us. We do this every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, out here on the West Coast. Sean, UFC Fight Night 110 happened, and it was Mark Hunt versus Derek Lewis.
It left you wanting more.
Didn't it?
It left you thinking, what did we just watch? Because not a lot stood out to you, but yet you had perhaps the oldest guy in the UFC, had another walk-off in seemingly his hometown of New Zealand, and you got Mark Hunt, who knocked Derek Lewis right out of the title picture and right into retirement. Yo, this guy, Derek Lewis, has been talked about so much about being in the title contention in the heavyweight division for so long that one knockout sent him into retirement because he's getting married, and that's what he wants to do with his future.
Okay, I had two issues with this because Derek Lewis supposedly had a back injury, whether you believe that or not. There's also rumblings and pictures of him eating wings before his fight.
When you don't have to cut weight, it's perfectly fine.
Right? So, I don't know how seriously he even came in to take this fight. Because he came on a 6-fight win streak, and yet basically just packed it in against Mark Hunt. I mean, he spent most of the time with his back against the cage, most of the time not doing a whole lot. I don't know why you would step in a ring against Mark Hunt when you're not even 100% psychologically involved in this fight. Because Mark Hunt has one thing, he was going to take your head off. Hunt was able to use his leg kicks, get inside because he was a smaller fighter, and was able to actually pose his will onto Derek Lewis and get that W. Derek Lewis to call it a career and say that he's done. I mean, for a light heavyweight, dude, he had no business being in a heavyweight fight because his strikes were weak. He looked tired. Why are you, as a heavyweight, dude, why are you throwing flying knees?
You want to show that you're capable of something much more, and that's what he was trying to do.
Dude,
he came into this fight
ain't broken in heavyweight, which means that you stand there and you bang. You just do it. You don't try to get all cute and fancy as a heavyweight.
But Lewis didn't think that he was going to get hit with leg kicks. He didn't think he was going to get hit with basically the kitchen sink from Mark Hunt. He thought he was going to get into that slugfest. But Mark Hunt wore him down with leg kicks. Made him think twice about it. And then ultimately just said, you know what? That's it. He was done. The leg kicks wore him down. He couldn't get that distance. Mark Hunt patiently abided his time. Once he got him, Derek Lewis up against the cage, that was it. That right hand came down like Thor's hammer. Straight up. Boom.
That's kind of what happened in 22 seconds with Derek Brunson.
Derek Brunson needed this win. Derek Brunson needed this big KO of Dan Kelly to shoot him back up into that title contention again. A lot of these guys were wavering and teetering.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Who's going to get what? Who's going to get that next title shot? Derek Brunson is one of those guys that sneaks in. Yes, you know what? He lost his last fight to Anderson Silva, but that was controversial. That, to me, was one of those fights that could have gone either way.
Right? Could have?
I think majority of it had a 50-50 split in that people thought that Derek Brunson won that fight, and Anderson Silva lost that fight. Anderson Silva didn't do enough in that fight to warrant it. So you wash your hands of that one and say, it is what it is. So with his big KO of Dan Kelly, there's only one fight left because you got Robert Whittaker fighting for the title against Yoel Romero. So you look back at this and you say, well, the next fight that makes sense in this is, how about he gets the winner of Chris Weidman versus Gastelum?
Or what about, as it pays me to say, you also have Luke Rockhold that's out there that needs a fight.
You think Luke Rockhold's going to jump at a fight against Derek Brunson? Dude, Luke Rockhold's not jumping at anybody.
Sean, but he called out Gegard Mousasi.
He calls out everybody.
But wait, he called him out because he felt like that he deserved the KO of the Night award and get a bonus, and he didn't. So he said, per his fight contract, that if you don't get a fight bonus, and he's like, unless I read my contract wrong, then he gets to call out a fight and make a fight. That's the fight he wants. But Mousasi's still a free agent. Like I said earlier in the show, he's still a free agent. And rumblings I'm getting is that he's heading to Bellator because he ain't happy with the UFC.
When you can go to Bellator, again, broken record, ring that bell. Every time, we should have a bell right behind us that every time I say something I've repeated about 5,000 times on said show or previous shows, we just ring that bell. Because everybody's going to go to Bellator to get paid. It's just the way it is.
I also think it more has to do with that you don't have to play favorites in Bellator.
But are we playing favorites by telling everybody that they're going to go to Bellator?
No.
Oh, look, I did it again.
Because Mousasi, strike force. You see the ties. And then when you start hearing the rumors and the rumblings, and when you start asking people questions, and you start digging a little bit deeper, you see firsthand that how many people talk about Bellator. Talk about guys jumping ship from the UFC to Bellator. It's inedible. It's going to happen. Now, who's next? We don't know.
But what's next for Dan Hooker, who nailed a brutal knee to Ross Pearson?
That was sickening.
His mouthpiece went flying like 20 feet up in the air.
That was sickening. Ross Pearson needs to retire, though. He's a gamer.
You're so quick to throw, you need to retire.
Sean, his last couple of fights have been He's the guy pretty much that, hey, he's the poor man's Diego Sanchez. He's the guy that, hey, we need a filler. We need a guy that's going to give you a tough fight. You want to fight? Yes, absolutely, I'll fight. And then you go in there and get your block knocked off, or your teeth knocked down your throat, or your mouthpiece flying into the audience 10 rows backwards. That's Pearson now. I see you get to this point where, as a fighter, you have to look at longevity. You have to look at, are you a title contender? Why are you still doing
Tristan,
this?
but you need those guys that are that middle of the road guys.
The gatekeepers that get it.
You need those guys to put a name to a value of a fighter. And that's what he does. That's what he offers. He puts on a good fight time to time. He's entertaining. He's been around the block. A for effort. It'll be interesting to see where Dan goes from here because, I mean, I was looking at who he could potentially fight because he moved up to the lightweight division and away from featherweight. But it's like, if he wants to drop down to featherweight, give him another rematch against, basically, I guess you could say a title eliminator between him and Yair Rodriguez in a rematch where he lost to Yair.
Because Yair got destroyed by Frankie Edgar.
Or you could give him Mr. Big Mouth. Al Quinta.
That's who I would go.
Stand up versus stand up. Could be an interesting fight. Evan Dunham. All around, good guy, good striker.
That's possible.
Good on the ground, good on his feet. Could be posing an interesting threat for him. So you've got a lot of different things to go. But it left you a little bit more to be desired. And this is where we get into what I was just mentioning before break with Emmett Glenn about Ireland.
Right?
Bamma 30 goes to Dublin, Ireland.
And do you know how
if
many
I could
people
ever
are
get
talking
over
about
flying,
it,
if I could ever get over flying, Dublin, Ireland has always been a place I've always wanted to see.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I've heard how beautiful it is, how great green it is. It's one of those things that it's on my bucket list if I could ever get over the fear of flying. Seriously, it is. But this card is unique because it's got a lot of people from Ireland. And this is where I was talking about, man, the people of Ireland, the fighters over there, they talk big game. That's what they do. You've got Richard Keeley. Sorry if I'm saying wrong, but you've got Richard Keeley who's came out and said, I can't wait to run through the Bamma welterweight division. I almost feel sorry for whoever has to fight me. Then he goes on to say, trust me, whoever I fight at Bamma 30, the same thing's going to happen. Highlight real KO. Dude, seriously? Bump your brakes. This guy hasn't been around the block long. He had his first fight where he knocked Keith McCabe out by caving his chest in with a knee straight to the sternum that made my wife go, oh, what just happened? He literally put that thing right here. So, I get it. But these guys in Ireland are coming in with so much swag. Aaron Kennedy taking on Fabian the Assassin Edwards. You want to see a banger fest? Dude, this one's going to be one for the books. Dude, because these two guys are going after each other.
Yes, well, those two guys, yes. But what I like is that you got Shea Walsh versus Alan Philpott for the vacant Bamma bantamweight title. Walsh believes that that bantamweight title is his because he lost to the now UFC Tom DeQuinstano, and he lost it. Walsh is on a 2-fight win streak, expected to come forward. Philpott's last loss also to Dom DeQuinstano. So we got guys that want the title, want the bantamweight title, but both of them has been kind of on the outside looking in. Philpott believes that now's his time, and while you guys the two other guys are talking, Philpott believes that he's going to send Shea Walsh into retirement.
See, that's the thing is that nobody knows anything about Bamma really because it's under the radar. It's hard to find the ability to watch Bamma. I'm certain that Glenn, Emmett, and Fightbook and all those guys can send out a link or find the ability to link. Our guys over at MMA Madhouse can probably find a link for us and get this event streamed, because you've got guys on this card that are local talent to Ireland that at this point you need to be made aware of. When you've got guys that are talking as much smack as these local guys from Ireland are, you naturally want to see, are they going to put up or shut up?
Oh, absolutely.
And Aaron Kennedy, again, much like Richard Keeley, says, I will knock out and shut this clown up in terms of Fabian the Assassin Edwards.
See?
They're just... Dude.
I like this because, like Emmett in the chat room said, one thing that Bamma does really well, and I mean really well among anybody else, hands down without a question, is they go out and get the local talent that people will want to see. They will buy the tickets. They will pack the arena. They will pack the house. And you know what they will do? Put on a heck of a show for the fans. Because that's what they are about.
Absolutely. So
Billy McCombs, welcome.
So when you look at that, that's one of the things that I was looking at when I was pulling up Bama. Like, dude, Bama's got some guys that are out there that you are waiting to see on a bigger, grander stage that everybody gets to see if you're talking this much smack. But, I mean, this goes hand in hand with, in another month or so, you'll be seeing TFE return, and that'll be another avenue.
Entertainment, absolutely.
As well, to get that other avenue of future fighters from homegrown talent, like they're putting on a show in Indiana that'll feature homegrown talent. Sometimes
that's the way you have to go. Homegrown talent to build a brand, to build and establish
and not
an organization and not be afraid to do it. You have to go local talent, because you can't always match up with the big guns. But I'll be damned if you don't try by going out and get local talent, which is a smart business.
Yeah, and so our buddies from Fightbook, Roberto, if you guys need a link to Bamma 30, hit them up.
Hit up Fightbook MMA, Roberto Villa.
They'll hook you up.
Absolutely.
Get you ready to see these guys that we're talking about here for Bamma 30. But talking about bringing up homegrown talent.
Nobody's talking about right now, Sean, is the inaugural.
That's the way you wanted to go?
Yes.
I was just going to like...
Yes, because unfortunately that's me. I want to talk about that because it's the first one ever. But inaugural Pro Fighters League 1 is coming up June 30th in Daytona. My brother doesn't want to talk about it because unfortunately he finds it a snooze fest because, well, WSOF kind of floundered and he believes this won't be any different.
WSOF didn't really flounder. It just turned into PFL.
So he says that's basically still going to be ran the same. And it's not going to do any better than what WSOF did. But John Finch, Brian Foster headlining that card. It will be for the number one
That's
seed.
the only fight that I'm interested in is Brian Foster. If you know Brian Foster from, what is it? I believe he's from Team Alpha Male.
Yep.
The guy's a slugger. You're putting him against John Finch, who essentially likes to get the fight to the ground. It'll be interesting to see how Foster keeps this fight standing and keeps it in his wheelhouse for the inaugural number one contender fight.
Right. The number one seed. We're playing college basketball here.
It's like, for me...
It's March Madness in June.
I get where PFL's trying to go with this. I get it. I get that they want to do a tournament base. Bellator did it. They did a tournament base. So, what I don't get is PFL says they're the world's first and only professional league. I find that hard to believe.
Because there was one before you guys.
Well, yeah, that one, but they're the only one now. And I believe that it is the only one now.
Roberto Villa says the only fight I want to see is in PFL is the main event, right?
That's what we're saying. Foster versus Fitch. That is it.
You got Rama, who was the number one ranked heavyweight coming out of Canada. Since then, hasn't fought at heavyweight, dropped down to 205. Ronnie Marks, that's who he's going to be fighting. Marks is what? 3-2 in the UFC. The dude lost recently at M1 Challenge. Like, this guy is just a journeyman and he's going to face Rama. Inaugural PFL League, I guess we're just going to have to wait to see because they want to give us a taste of the PFL in 2018, taste in 2017 compared to 2018. So I guess it's just, to me, this comes off like a ripoff of Bellator Monster Fights. And except they got world-class talent versus regional talent. So that's how they're pitting this one against Bellator.
But world-class talent is what Andre Ward has always had from his evolution as a Golden Glove boxer to where he's at now. He's not been the one to say, you know what, I'm the aggressor. I'm the one that's going to put on an entertaining show. No, he's a boxer, a technical boxer. Sergey Kovalev, when that first fight, those two went back and forth for basically 12 rounds. You saw Andre Ward get put on the canvas for one of the first times in his career.
And was able to get up.
Get back up. I think at that point, he was only knocked down one other time in his career. And this was his second time. But then over the time, Andre Ward puts jabs, combos, movements, you name it, and basically works everything. And slows the other opponent down to the point between 7th and the 12th round. He basically then takes over and just runs the gauntlet and beats up everybody. That's what he did in this. And then the first fight was weathered the storm, put on a clinic, won the fight.
And Kovalev believes that he has absolutely no choice but to ultimately end the career of Andre Ward.
That's big. That's big talk coming from Sergey when you're saying that you're going to end the career of another boxer.
I never really liked that sentiment when somebody says, I have no choice but to end this man's career after the last fight. Now, I find it interesting because to me, and again, I don't understand why Andre Ward is so hated. Because so many people like Floyd Mayweather, right? Because Andre Ward is a more defensive fighter, not really flashy. But he's being dubbed the villain in this fight. And I would think that he would be more of the face in this fight. Because here's a guy that was the last American, you said it, to win an Olympic gold medal. He is a guy that has a Nike endorsement deal. He has a family that he's absolutely 100% dedicated to. He believes in faith. This is a man that has overcome 2 drug-addicted parents. Everything would tell you that fans should love this guy. But yet all I get from fans that I've spoken to about fans is that he is boring. That he comes off like, well, he's boxing's version of John Cena. That's the way that I look at this fight. Is that because you talk to some fans, some like him. You talk to some fans hate him. You talk about John Cena, same kind of thing. Well, yes, he's been a 16-time world champ, but his moves are stale. He's stale. He hasn't adapted to the change of the climate in wrestling.
I just wish that this fight was on free TV.
Doesn't talk.
I just wish this fight was on free TV.
Oh, absolutely. So do I. Like the first one.
It would have been entertaining to see this one instead of on Showtime pay-per-view.
That's another thing. People are talking about that. Well, why? Why are we going to have a pay-per-view fight between Andre Ward versus Sergey Kovalev 2? Why is it going to be on pay-per-view? Andre Ward can't draw. Let's see here. 80% of Las Vegas cheers for Andre Ward. The other half cheers for the other fighter. Las Vegas is a pro Andre Ward city. Period. Okay? Andre Ward, not a star. That's interesting that you say that. Because he's a ranked fighter, pound for pound, one of the best fighters in the world. Titles say so. He's ranked as one of the highest grossing non-pay-per-view fighters. But he's not a star. Endorsements in the high 6 figures. Not a star? Then explain to me how a man like that gets 6 figures in endorsements, gets ranked the highest.
And why he's still undefeated.
Right. Tell me, explain it to me how he gets those credentials and you still don't give him the credit.
Roberto says that he has Kovalev KOing Ward. If he's going to do it, he's got to do it the same way that he did it in the first fight. Get to him fast, get to him quick, and get to him by the second round and make sure he doesn't get back up.
They have to. You have to end this.
But getting back up and everything else like that is one thing that Floyd Mayweather had to do late last night with his camp. He had to get back up early and say, wait a second. You know when I retracted the MGM Grand? You know what? Hold up. Wait a second. We're going to go ahead and throw that back out there. We booked MGM Grand for August 26th. They will promote Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather for August 26th in Las Vegas. Whether he has signed the contract, people still say he hasn't signed the contract. But what's interesting is if you haven't signed the contract, why would you book the MGM Grand Arena
for a date and a specific date in that
to promote a fight? Are you saying that Floyd Mayweather Promotions is promoting one of his own fights? It leaves you puzzled and it leaves you thinking. But mark it down in your calendar. August 26th, Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather. It's going to happen. I keep being told, I keep reading everywhere. Why is this fight even going to happen? This fight shouldn't happen.
It's not good for boxing.
But the bottom line is that you're forgetting too is that Anderson Silva fought in boxing at one point.
Yes, he did.
You forget that? So to have Conor McGregor in this era, in this generation, fight in boxing, I don't get why everybody's crying foul over how wrong this is or how embarrassing Conor McGregor is going to get.
Is it just me? Is it too much to ask that I just want a good, solid fight?
That's all I care about. That's all anybody wants to see. This will be the highest grossing pay-per-view. This will be the highest paid pay-per-view. Trust me on this. You will be making more money at this pay-per-view than he did against Pacquiao. If you thought that ringside seat tickets went for $1,000,
think about this as the Super Bowl money.
Bet you 10-1 that ringside seats is going to go for double figures. Bet you 10-1 it'll be about $10K for a ringside seat.
Oh, absolutely.
It'll be $1,000 alone just for the nosebleed.
We're talking about Super Bowl money. That's what we're talking about. Yes, Nathan, I absolutely agree. 100%.
It's always about money when it comes to Conor.
It's about money to Conor, and it's about money to Floyd Mayweather. That's all it is.
Come on. You got Floyd Mayweather named Team Money.
Money, right? I've seen videos
of him with stacks of cash. And then you've got Conor McGregor who walks around flaunting his money after he got his big payday against Nick Diaz.
With a mink coat. You know?
It's all about money for them and also about their legacy. You've got one guy that
wants to take his legacy from him.
You got one guy that's chasing the ever-eluding 50-0.
You got another guy that's chasing his legacy because he wants to become
the first double sport champion, if you will.
Right. He wants to cement his legacy as the greatest
of all time
fighter of all time. The only way to do that, the only last fight for him to do, is go against Floyd Mayweather. And I think Conor, come on, Sean, let's be real for a minute. I think Conor is trying to get a quick payday because he doesn't believe. He's always made it perfectly clear.
He doesn't have long in the sport.
So he's going to make the most money in the sport and get out while he can.
And this is fitting. And the other thing, too. Am I wrong? In MMA, when you train mixed martial arts, you train in all different disciplines. One of the disciplines you train in is boxing. You train in boxing. Conor McGregor has been training in boxing for a long time. Everybody's been training in boxing. So for him to say, you know what? I only got to train in boxing now? Cool. I don't have to train in jiu-jitsu?
I'll train in one discipline? I'm
cool.
Good.
He's been training in boxing since the time he started in MMA to the time that now where we're at even talking about this. This is not as far-fetched as people think it is.
Because he's been in camp now for almost a year now, solely in boxing.
Not just that, he's been training in the boxing discipline for years.
Correct. Nathan in the chat room says, "What do we think is going to happen in the fight if Conor in the fight world if Conor wins?"
If Conor wins by knockout, that's it. Everything you know when it comes to mixed martial arts, UFC, Bellator, whatever you want to call it, it'll be turned upside down. The way you look at sports, the way you look at combat sports, it'll never be the same again because Conor McGregor did what people say is the unthinkable. Something that shouldn't have happened.
Also, you have to think about this too, because everybody, you either love him or you hate him. In both counters between Conor McGregor...
There it is, breaking news. Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather has signed on the dotted line August 26th.
Yep, my brother just got the text right here. I wish I could show them, but... So, he just got it. Breaking news. It is official. We will have Floyd Mayweather versus Conor. It's going down. Unbelievable. We got it. There you go, folks. Right here, the Ducross brothers, Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather has been signed. It is 100% confirmed. It is done. August 26th at the MGM Grand. Can you believe that? We're live on air.
Sports, as we know it in combat sports, will be forever altered. Good, bad, or indifferent. Everything changes. As of June 14th, 2017.
At 2 p.m. with the Sports Warriors and the Cross Brothers.
Combat sports forever altered.
Yep. Out with the old. In with the new. The Sports Warriors, the Ducross Brothers, right here. Go to our website, ducrossbrothers.com. You can also friend us, Sean and Tristan Ducross. Also like our fan page, Ducross Brothers. Until next time, we are out.
Let's get it on. Sprawl and brawl, ground and pound. Get ready for an MMA showdown. Now the ultimate Octagon Insider, Sean and Tristan Ducross.